I think we could do one song, one tune.
Yes.
Woo! Bob, can you sing it? My butt.
Sharp crowd.
This is a great song. You had no idea. This song.
Oh, really? It introduces a story?
Yes.
All right.
It is exactly. Gail Elson, this is your song. Gail, you'll see in a minute. Gail, come on up. Gail Elson.
Okay. It was May 1967. I was a graduate student at the University of Washington in Seattle, and my boyfriend, Ben, an electrical engineer, was one of the acres of engineers at the Boeing company in Seattle. Boeing had a large stable of engineers because they wanted to show that when they bid for contracts, they had enough personnel to handle them. And, however, these engineers didn't have very much to do that was interesting or boring, and Ben was very bored. And he decided, when he saw at the back of his magazine an ad for a West Coast avionics editor. The magazine was Aviation Week in Space Technology, commonly called Av Week, and avionics is aviation electronics. So he applied for this job and was asked to write a piece based on a project he'd done at Boeing, which he did, and apparently they liked it. They sent Dick O'Lone, who was the bureau chief of the San Francisco Bureau of the magazine, to interview him. And Ben felt after the interview that it went very well, and Dick said that Ben would hear within the next couple of weeks. Well, a couple of weeks went by, and then 3 weeks and 4 weeks, and he didn't hear anything, and he was becoming increasingly morose and just unhappy about the whole situation. And I decided one day that he really had to call the editor of the magazine and find out what his situation was vis-a-vis the magazine. So I got home from class and I waited a while until I knew that he'd be home from work, and I dialed his phone number. Now, in the old days, if you dialed a number, and this was before answering machines, before voicemail, you got a busy signal. Well, I called his number, and the line was indeed busy, but I didn't get a busy signal. I got tied directly into his conversation. And he was obviously talking to the editor of the magazine, and it became clear very soon thereafter that he had been offered the job. And I continued to listen, and then I hear Ben say, "I'm very glad to have heard from you because, you know, I have a girlfriend and I've been wanting to ask her to marry me, but I've been waiting to hear about the job first." I'm still listening. And finally, I decide to hang up the phone very quietly. I wait about 10 minutes to call Ben's number again when I figured that his conversation was over, and I dial his number. No answer. He's not there. And I thought, was I hallucinating? Did I imagine this whole thing? I called several times. He wasn't there. After about an hour and a half, it was about 7:30 in the evening, my doorbell rings, and I open it, and there is Ben standing there. And I burst out, "Ben, where have you been?" And he looks at me kind of oddly. He said, "It's Tuesday. You know I always play handball with the guys on Tuesday," which of course I had forgotten. Anyway, I proceeded to tell him the whole story, how I had heard this conversation. I probably should have kept my mouth shut, but I didn't. And then he says to me, a little crestfallen, "Well, will you marry me?" So you know what I said. He went out to the hallway where he had left this bouquet of roses, which he brought in, and we called our folks in New York and started talking about wedding plans, etc. The next day at work, he wrote a letter to the president of Pacific Bell, which was the phone company. And he complained that because of a glitch in their system, he had been deprived of the opportunity to propose to his girl. The following day at work, at Boeing, he gets a phone call from the office of the president of Pacific Bell, asking him when he'd be home from work that evening. And he told them that night at about 6 o'clock, a messenger from the president of Pacific Bell's office comes to his door with a note. And the note said, "If anything in our system goes wrong, it always goes wrong at the worst possible time. Please accept our apologies and congratulations." And the messenger then hands him 2 large bottles of Moet champagne, which is really the end of the story. As a postscript, we left Seattle that summer. Ben was sent to we left Seattle and moved to New York, where Ben was to learn the magazine business at the McGraw-Hill offices on West 42nd Street. In September, we got married, and sometime thereafter, we moved out to the Bay Area, where Ben began a very satisfying career as West Coast avionics editor for Aviation Week and Space Technology. Thank you.
All good things start in Seattle. That's the moral of that story. Bill, do you have another tune for us? Better? Is it better?
Goodbye, cruel world.
Ooh.